You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
Metaverse. Sounds straight out of a sci-fi novel, right? Well, it is. From a 1992 dystopian novel Snow Crash by American writer Neal Stephenson that envisioned a digital universe as a 3D space that one can come in and out of. And that sci-fi concept that has been the plot of movies like Matrix or Inception is exactly what Mark Zuckerberg is aiming for as he announced that Facebook is rebranding itself as Meta. The social media platform will still be called Facebook, and everything else, WhatsApp, Instagram, all that remains, but with the rechristening of the company name from Facebook to Meta, it's not just a social media company anymore, but hopes to be a quote-unquote metaverse company, something that wants to make this sci-fi concept into a reality. But where is this reinvention coming from? Well, Zuckerberg, the chief executive of the company, explained the name Facebook doesn't fully encompass everything that the company does anymore, let alone the future. So the rebranding, in fact, is heralding a transition in the company towards building the next generation of the internet, you can say, that'll blend the real and virtual worlds for its users. But what is Meta's futuristic vision going to look like in practice? Is this going to be the next big thing? As the social media company faces a trust deficit over data privacy issues, what are some of the concerns that arise as the social media giant takes a plunge into the AR/VR world? To talk about all this in this episode, we speak to Udbhav Tiwari, who's a public policy advisor at Mozilla. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you. This is your host, Shorbori. Since the rebranding announcement on 28th October, the famous thumbs-up logo for the company has been replaced with an infinity sign. Zuckerberg has also said that he picked the name Meta because in Greek, it symbolizes a beyond. But really, for future users, what is the Metaverse? Think of it as a digital world that can be accessed by people through virtual reality. So in a sense, VR is going to be the backbone of Meta. But the Metaverse is not going to be about a single product. In the company's own words, essentially, it's going to be a, quote, set of virtual spaces where you can create and explore with other people who aren't in the same physical space as you. You will be able to hang out with friends, work, play, learn, shop, create, and more, end quote. But if this is said to be the next big thing, what is the Metaverse going to look like in practice? Udbhav Tiwari, public policy advisor at Mozilla, paints us a picture.
Usually a concept that tries to say that the distinctions between virtual worlds and real worlds that currently exist with regard to the internet are going to be blurred in the near future. And companies like Facebook are working towards a reality where using technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality, people will be able to carry out interactions that they traditionally carry out in the virtual world, in the real world, and vice versa. The most common way in which we may see it play out is playing games, for example, that rather than playing on one's mobile devices or computers, are superimposed upon real world, say like tables, or even communications that say take place on platforms, video conferencing platforms right now, taking place in the real world with people wearing goggles that say let them look at people as if they're actually standing in the world around them. So it's much more of a strategy than a definite concept.
But why is Meta looking to capture the Metaverse? Why at this very moment? Well, one way to look at it is that this broadening of vision is not entirely unprecedented. It had already been dipping its toes into the Metaverse, starting with acquiring Oculus for $2 billion in 2014. Oculus, as we know, makes virtual reality headsets for 3D video games, something that was touted to be the future of gaming. But beyond Oculus 2, the company has invested quite a bit in augmented or virtual reality. As per reports, it'll invest $10 billion in Facebook Reality Labs, or FRL, which was created last year after the firm merged Oculus operations with other projects working on VR and AR. Simultaneously, the company recently also invested $50 million in funding non-profit groups to help, quote-unquote, build the metaverse responsibly. It has also announced plans to hire another 10,000 developers in the European Union to work on its metaverse computing platform. So, it's not really going to be something that we'll see overnight. That's something Zuckerberg has made clear. He said that he expects the metaverse to reach 1 billion people within the next decade or so. But in the backdrop of this rebranding, Facebook has also been facing a crisis, which is not just about antitrust simply, but the fact that it has also been losing popularity among younger people. Analysis based on internal documents that were leaked in the media suggested that people under 30 were spending much less time on Facebook, posting a lot lesser, and that's been a problem for almost a decade. And if the current numbers are bad, it's projected to drop even more in the future. In fact, the Facebook researcher behind this analysis had written in the internal memo that the quote-unquote aging up issue is real. So while the company is taking a plunge into something that it has already been dabbling in, somewhere is it also worried about losing relevance? Mr. Tiwari believes that it's a little bit of both.
I would say that it's a combination of both things. So, for example, Facebook, as a part of its Metaverse announcement, has also said that it's going to be retiring the Oculus brand. And the new entity that's going to be carrying out those activities is going to be called Facebook Reality Labs. There is certainly an element that the social media sector as a whole is stagnating. And one can see that because of how the membership of platforms like Facebook in countries like the United States of America and many parts of the Western world is actually dropping year by year rather than necessarily increasing. So this is definitely a way to make social interaction as well as interactions that are professional be more appealing and more exciting rather than the sort of distinct ways in which they take place in the virtual world and there is a separate real world.
But it's also hard to ignore the fact that this announcement also comes amid a deep image crisis that the company is facing over privacy-related matters, indiscriminate data collection, failing to put an end to the sharing of misinformation in its social media platforms, and not to mention the scandalizing documents leaked by whistleblower Frances Haugen, who has accused Facebook of, quote-unquote, putting profits over safety. I mean, really, the list of Facebook's controversies and scandals is unending. But goes without saying that critics are highly skeptical about whether the corporate rebranding is a genuine attempt to set the company on course for what Zuckerberg sees as the future of computing, or simply an attempt to divert attention from all its scandals. And perhaps to address those very concerns, Zuckerberg also emphasized that privacy and safety will be central to the new projects of this company. And I'm just going to read out a couple of lines for you from what Zuckerberg said during the announcement. Quote, privacy standards will be built into the multiverse from day one. One of the lessons I've internalized from the last 5 years is we need to emphasize these principles from the very start, end quote. But given Facebook's track record, are there any anticipated concerns regarding data privacy when Metaverse becomes a reality? Is it just going to be another way of taking more user data indiscriminately? Mr. Tiwari says that data and privacy concerns are something that we should be watching out for carefully, but we're still far away from being certain about those violations.
I think that we are quite a while away before we can convincingly say that a company like Facebook is going to rule the Metaverse. I think that they may call themselves Meta and work towards the Metaverse, but by no means is this going to be something that Facebook will be the only entity participating in. Every other big technology company, whether it's Apple and the rumored AR glasses, whether it's Google and their own AR projects, is working on different initiatives in order to engage with this idea of a metaverse. There are certainly some risks that clearly demonstrate themselves. Facebook doesn't really have a great track record when it comes to privacy and data protection and security. And many of those risks that exist in current interactions really sort of amplify themselves when one looks at this interaction of the real world and the virtual world. So it's something that one must watch very carefully, but I think that we are quite some time away from any of these ideas being both present tangibly enough in the real world as well as popularly adopted that some of those risks will start manifesting themselves. I think it's an opportunity to learn from our previous experiences with traditional social media and definitely keep a preemptive eye out for those risks and mitigate them either via laws or via internal self-regulatory actions that companies like Facebook can take.
And all these discussions on data and privacy, be it existing issues or simply anticipated ones, keep coming back to the same point: data protection laws. And it's something that India doesn't have despite strong demands for it. That the metaverse will definitely bring newer avenues for data collection and revenues for Facebook is a fact. But only a strong data protection bill in countries like India can be a safeguard for its users, Mr. Tiwari says.
There has been some research that's done where individuals can be uniquely identified on the basis of how, say, they use their hands when they're interacting with virtual objects in the real world. Or sometimes even with eye tracking, where if one looks at virtual reality goggles, one of the ways in which they work is actually by tracking the movement of eyes.
Right.
When somebody is looking into the screen, that can also sometimes be used to uniquely identify individuals. We haven't really reached a stage yet where these things are actively being used for advertising, but they are definitely being explored by a wide variety of companies, including Facebook. And I mean, I think we should be pretty clear about the fact that Facebook is in this for profit. While there may be larger goals of social interaction that exist, its core business model continues to be showing personalized advertising on the basis of user data. And this is definitely going to be one more avenue of such user data collection that will allow it to integrate with other data that it already has from platforms like Facebook and Instagram and can arguably make it more effective. And I think the need of the hour in order to mitigate some of those concerns, especially in places like India, is a very strong data protection law that allows governments and regulators to be able to hold companies like Facebook to account when they don't follow the principles of such a law. Until we really have such a reality, even the harms that we do know about in platforms like Facebook and Instagram themselves aren't really being dealt with effectively. So some of these more higher order concerns around the metaverse and virtual reality and its privacy risks are a much further question until we get a good, strong data protection law.
And now, finally, one thing to say before we end this episode of The Big Story is that a lot of companies rebrand themselves and it yields mixed results. So will Meta catch up to Facebook? We'll have to wait and watch for that. We'll be back next Monday with a big story. Until then, have a great weekend. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story playlist for episodic updates. We're live on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website and check out the podcast section. For any feedback, shoot an email to podcasts@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.